Previously on Years of Living Dangerously.
Welcome to Bangladesh.
Thank you.
Bangladesh is the size of Iowa. So think about all of the U.S. being packed into Iowa.
So you've seen this city expand?
Yes, every day people coming from the rural areas.
This would be considered a good living space in the city. And climate change is exacerbating all of this.
They're forced to come here.
Oh yes, water is creeping into people's homes.
17% of the landmass, 13% of the population will be inundated.
How much of this is affected?
Below that, all will be underwater for 1 meter sea level rise.
Chad Tilley, a former U.S. Air Force pilot, has been flying relief missions in Bangladesh for the last 8 years.
Have you flown a bunch of small airplanes before?
Yeah, a few.
Okay. Have you been in a seaplane before?
No.
Okay, cool. First time. Copy, clear for takeoff.
I've spent the last few days in Dhaka, Bangladesh's overcrowded capital, where thousands of new migrants are arriving every day. Now Chad is taking me south, to the part of the country where most of these migrants come from. I want to see what's making them come to Dhaka.
So Michael, you look at Dhaka, it's kind of like Legoland. If you look, you'll see just buildings everywhere. That area off the left wing is the most densely populated square kilometer on the face of the earth. 144,000 people per square kilometer.
It's crazy how quiet this city seems from the air. And before long, we've left it behind completely.
Unlike in America where we have a lot of rock and gravel in our soil, here we have muddy kind of soft sand. The water can do with it as it please. You see how all these fields are reflecting back, not just the river, all still water. You see how all this area is still underwater.
I've heard people call Bangladesh a land of rivers, but that didn't prepare me for what I'm seeing. There's water everywhere.
In your experience, is it raining more lately or more intensely?
I've been here for 8 years, and I fly down here weekly, daily.
Yeah.
And this is some of the highest water level that I've seen in my time.
Right.
I believe that I'm flying in the midst of climate change.
Right.
Human activities are changing the atmosphere in unexpected and in unprecedented ways.
That the greenhouse effect has been detected, and it is changing our climate now.
The atmosphere and ocean have warmed. The amounts of snow and ice have diminished. Sea level has risen, and the concentrations of greenhouse gases have...
There is no more fire season. We have wildfires all year round.
Climate change, extreme weather, call it what you will, and our vulnerability to it.
The 12 years of drought has left the landscape bone dry.
We got any patriots in the crowd?
A new scientific report has determined the last decade was the warmest on record.
Our world is changing faster and more dramatically than ever before.
Okay, guys, we're going to come and land in the water now. Please make sure your seatbelts are fastened. There it is.
Yeah, that's no dinghy.
I'm finally here in southern Bangladesh, There's so much water in this part of the country that boats are the main way to get around. And for the next few days, I'll be living on one. The ML Balawi. I asked Dr. Atik Rahman, the climate scientist I met earlier in my trip, to join me down here. You're an expert. I am admittedly a novice, and I've come here and learned...
Well, we are trying to learn.
No, and I've learned a bit, but the more I learn, the more I realize how much there is to learn and how complicated the problem is. I was wondering if you could share with me some of your thoughts about climate migration.
All the predictions are that there is going to be huge migration around climate change in the decades to come. Now, when we ask the local communities, now that you had one cyclone, two cyclones, three, and fourth one, you know, what is your feeling? They don't want to go.
It's like taking someone from their mother.
Yeah, exactly.
But while these people may not want to leave, soon they may not have a choice. Cyclones are getting more intense. Two recent ones, Sidr and Isla, left more than 1 million people homeless. And other more subtle changes in the climate can also wreak havoc here.
We talk about the sea level rise going up by 1 meter in 2100. Now, that's not what ordinary people are worried about, 2100. They are worried about their next meal. And that is being affected by climate change impacts. For example, these people have learned a very fine-tuned agricultural system, but if the rain comes 10 days earlier or 10 days later, they won't know where to sow their seedlings, which is the basis of the next plants. And if it comes too heavy, then it's a flood. And if it's a flood, then the seedlings die. So they don't have the seedling for the next crop.
And there's another threat to the crops that we can't even see. Salt.
What happens is when the cyclone hits, salt water is pushed further north into the areas which were otherwise very arable and giving good crops.
In 2009, Cyclone Isla pushed salt water so far inland that 5 years later, much of it is still there. And the rising sea level only makes this worse.
So a cyclone not only destroys the trees and the infrastructure, but also the agricultural crops. Once they're covered by a layer of salt, the productivity isn't there. Many of the efforts we are doing to eliminate our poverty will be severely hindered by the impacts of climate change.
Atik tells me that after a long history of famine, one of his country's greatest achievements is that it now grows enough food to be nearly 100% self-sufficient. But climate change raises the question, for how long? Walking through this mud, I am beginning to understand how fragile life is becoming here.
Michael? Hi, hello.
Hi.
There were two villages from 2009, Isla, that has really swallowed these two villages, devoured it, as they say.
Seeing these remnants of people's homes makes it hard to grasp why they try to stay. Especially because all of this will eventually be underwater.
If they're forced to go, then go to the nearest embankment for a temporary shelter. The next stage is the urban centers like Khulna, the local city they would go to. And the last stage is the slums of Dhaka, which are overcrowded. So it's not very easy to say, hey, let's go. You know, it's not a picnic, it's life. Projection shows that by 2050, 2070, between 20 and 30 million Bangladeshis are going to be displaced. They'll have to be accommodated somewhere.
As I make my way through southern Bangladesh, what I'm seeing is hard to take in. Half-submerged trees, houses built on stilts to keep them above the rising water. There's something apocalyptic and otherworldly about it all. I come across a family whose home, perched on the edge of a riverbank, literally washed away in the night. Now, they are searching for another place to live. And a few days into my trip, I see one of the most surreal things I've ever seen. A floating hospital.
Hi, Michael.
Runa Khan is the co-founder of Friendship, an organization that provides health services to the most inaccessible places.
Living here is the challenge. You know that disaster is going to strike you. So they work towards the months in which they know that it happens. You know, they know when the floods come in, they know when the seasons of the storms. So they're prepared. What happens when it comes without that preparation and it keeps coming and knocking you out every time you want to stand on your feet? And that's what's happening.
What diseases and health issues have you seen increase?
Skin infection due to the salinity and being in the water all the time, diarrheal disease, ARI, respiratory tract infection, gynecological problems, like even childbirth becomes so difficult. Mortality rates of the mother and the child increases. Due to the climate change, not only is there a health issue, there is a livelihood issue.
As I tour the boat, I'm struck by all the unforeseen impacts climate change can have. But I'm also amazed by how resilient these people are, how hard they're trying to hang on to their lives here. It makes me wonder, how much can people adapt? In order to stay here, people will need a way to grow food even as salt water creeps further and further inland. It's one of the biggest challenges they face. And I heard about an American effort to help.
Hello, Michael.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador. Welcome.
Look at this palace afloat.
Yeah. American Ambassador Dan Mosina has served in the U.S. Foreign Service for over 30 years in countries from India to Angola. He says he requested this post in Bangladesh because he fell in love with the country during a previous assignment here.
We're off to visit a rice paddy, and we're going to see some comparisons of different rice seeds. We'll see a traditional variety, and we'll see an improved flood-tolerant variety.
Dan tells me rice makes up 80% of the diet here, and Bangladeshis take pride in their rice.
There are over 500 varieties of rice in Bangladesh. You know, we Americans, we think of white rice and brown rice, but they have 500. What's really special about the flood-tolerant variety is it has the same flavor of rice as the traditional variety. Otherwise, people won't eat it. They won't grow it. They have to have the taste. I must say, I've become a rice snob, too. You can really see it here. You see it? This is the improved variety that is stress tolerant. And this variety will endure, and listen to this, being completely submerged for up to 15 days, whereas the other one, you know, after 3 or 4 days, it's going to take a real wallop.
This kind of work is obviously making this land more usable, but all estimates suggest that within several decades, this part of Bangladesh will be underwater.
It's sobering, but as I look ahead, I think people can adapt.
Yes, but I do wonder if adaptation has its limits, and we may one day come to a place where we discover that it does. But for the time
I think
being,
you're right.
I can tell the ambassador is a naturally optimistic person, but he also appreciates how serious this threat is.
The rising sea levels, the increased weather extremes, often these are very theoretical, abstract notions. They're not theoretical and abstract here. These are real, and where we are right now, this is the frontier. No textbook here. This is just reality.
And he says the consequences could reach far beyond Bangladesh.
A failed Bangladesh, a Bangladesh that has not adapted to the impact of climate change, a Bangladesh that implodes, that's a tremendous security risk to the region and to us.
Southeast Asia is already a politically volatile region. To understand how climate change could create even more conflict, just look at a map. If the estimates are right, by the end of the century, tens of millions of Bangladeshis will be forced out of this area. If the country isn't able to provide another place for them, there's pretty much one place they can go. And India is already making it clear that it will go to great lengths to keep them out. I'm with Morshed Ali Khan, the Bangladeshi journalist I met back in Dhaka. He wants to show me how dangerous the life of a climate migrant can be.
India is your biggest neighbor, and people find it easier to go into India than to Dhaka. And yes, there is a threat. Lots of people cross this border, Michael, and many of them illegally. Many men, women, children get shot dead by the border security force of India.
Wow.
You can go this way. That's India. You know,
So beyond this pole here is no man's land, they call it?
yes, I think so. We can always ask how far we can go. Aro koto dur jete parbo amra? O dada, ekjon shune. Amra to film banabo, amra ain bhongo korte chai na. Amra gelam edike. We are allowed to go.
Morshed tells me this is considered one of the most dangerous borders in the world. I'm not sure how far I want to go.
Many of these houses are used as, you know, fast stopover for the aspiring migrant.
Mm-hmm.
So they spend the night here. In the middle of the night, they're just smuggled across.
Already, millions of Bangladeshis have fled across the border to India and are living and working there illegally, leading India to get very serious about stopping any more from crossing.
Let's walk a little faster, Michael, can we?
Sure.
Yeah, up to the fence, and then we get back. It's not a very safe place, you know?
Morshed says the Indian security forces have killed nearly 1,000 Bangladeshis.
Our threat is from the Indian side of the border. If they find that somebody is trying to intrude, they'll shoot and then talk, if he's alive.
Until a couple of years ago, they maintained a shoot-on-sight policy for anyone trying to cross without permission.
So just across there, you can see the fence, have a better look, view of the fence, just there.
Yeah, that's a long walk.
Yes.
Very exposed. Do you think any members of the Indian Border Police can see us from here?
Yeah.
Hello?
Dum, dum, dum.
Good one. All right, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
I've never been to such an eerie place, and I wonder what will happen here when millions of Bangladeshi homes are underwater.
And I don't know if that fence would deter people from trying to go across, you know. I don't think so. They're desperate. They're desperate.
Yeah. I'm heading to a district called Shakira, a few miles away from the Indian border, to see Shahidul, the climate migrant I met back in Dhaka. After 2 cyclones devastated his home, Shahidul moved to Dhaka and almost lost his life when the building where he worked collapsed. Hello, Shahidul. Thank you. Thank you for meeting us here.
Hi. He says he's very happy to see you. And his house is 5 kilometers away from here.
Okay.
So he's inviting you to go with him to his house. Hato?
This way? Okay.
Sit down.
Oh, it's nice.
After the disaster, I never thought that I would be able to come back home.
Can I ask, how did you feel when you heard that Shahidul was heading to Dhaka to work?
She says they didn't want him to go anywhere, that Shahidul's father didn't earn enough to run the family, so he had to help. He says that Ayla devastated his house.
Where was your house before Ayla?
Just here.
Would you be willing to show us the site where the house once stood?
Kevin? আচ্ছা চলেন যে বাসাটা একটু দেখেন Let's go. চলো। This is where his old house was. Ayla destroyed it, and then he shifted across the road.
Yeah, you only moved right across the road. You didn't go any further. Why?
He doesn't have any land elsewhere. So this is the land he found suitable.
I imagine the experience of Ayla was very scary. What was it like? What do you remember?
Everything was swept away by the high tide. You know, I prefer to save my children rather than my belongings.
Of course. Do you fear or even expect that a storm like Ayla will come again?
আপনি কি মনে করেন যে ওই আইলার মতো জলোচ্ছ্বাস আবার হবে? Allah knows.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. At the end of my trip, I share a meal with Shahidul. Soon, we're both going back to Dhaka. But really, we're heading in opposite directions. I'm on my way home, and he's leaving his. He was only able to visit his family for a few days. It's hard not to think about how different our lives are. It feels like we're in totally different worlds, but I've seen how connected those worlds actually are. Because what my country puts into the air is affecting more and more people like him. It reminds me of something Atiq said.
These are young people, many of them are restless, and they are being displaced, and many of them now understand the causal relationship, that it is somebody else's greenhouse gas that's causing my displacement. Shahidul represents that whole phenomenon. This is an issue of environmental justice and global human rights. Why are these people being displaced? Who has caused their displacement? Who is going to pay for it? And where are they going to go? If 70% of Bangladesh land is going underwater for 1 meter sea level rise, if another country came and invaded for that piece of land, every Bangladeshi will give their life and fight. Now here, who do we fight? Somebody has to take the blame.
And somebody has to lead the way toward a solution. Because eventually, climate change will touch us all.
Whoa! We are ready, aren't we? How about this one?
I have been searching all of my days, all of my days. Many a road, you know, I've been walking on all And I've been trying to find what's been in my mind as the days keep turning into night.
A sprinkle of rain falls on the soil, and from that soil comes life.
Well, I have been quietly standing in the shade all of my days. Watch the sky breaking on the promise that we made. All of this rain. And I've been trying to find what's been in my mind.
I love you. I'll see you this afternoon, okay?
As the days keep turning into night. So I smile, I know I'll feel this loneliness no more. All of my days. For I look around me, and it seems you found me, and it's coming into sight as the days keep turning into night. As the days keep turning into night.